Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum. I am Dr. Tawseef Anwar, working as Associate Professor of Medicine at Independent Medical College, Faisalabad. In the next 4 lectures, I will discuss with you diseases of the adrenal gland, which will include hypercortisolism or Cushing's syndrome, primary hyperaldosteronism, primary adrenal insufficiency or Addison's disease, and pheochromocytomas. The adrenal gland consists of 2 parts, an outer portion which is known as cortex and an inner portion which is known as medulla. It is covered by a capsule. Adrenal cortex consists of 3 layers: zona glomerulosa, which secretes mineralocorticoids, namely aldosterone; zona fasciculata, which secretes cortisol; and zona reticularis, which secretes androgens, namely testosterone. Renal medulla produces catecholamines, namely epinephrine and norepinephrine. Aldosterone secretion from zona glomerulosa is regulated by angiotensin II and adrenocorticotropic hormone, while glucocorticoids and androgens, they are stimulated by ACTH hormone. Adrenal production of cortisol is stimulated by the pituitary hormone, adrenocorticotropic hormone. ACTH production in turn is stimulated by the hypothalamic hormones, corticotropin releasing hormone and vasopressin, which is also known as antidiuretic hormone. Catecholamines released from adrenal medulla under conditions of stress also stimulate ACTH. Cortisol feeds back to the pituitary and hypothalamus to suppress levels of ACTH and CRH. Under normal physiological conditions or non-stress conditions, cortisol is secreted in a pronounced circadian rhythm, with higher levels early in the morning and low levels late in the evening. Under stressful conditions, secretion of corticotropin releasing hormone, ACTH, and cortisol increases and the circadian rhythm is blunted. Well, with the brief discussion of anatomy and physiology of adrenal glands, we come to our main topic today, which is Cushing's syndrome. Cushing's syndrome is the occurrence of clinical abnormalities associated with glucocorticoid excess as a result of exaggerated adrenal cortisol production or long-term glucocorticoid therapy. This is a rare disorder with an annual incidence of 3 to 5 persons per million population. Overall, the effects of cortisol are catabolic and diabetogenic. It increases catabolism of carbohydrates, proteins, and fats, and leads to increased concentration of glucose, free amino acids, and glycerol in the blood. Glycerol and free amino acids are used in the process of gluconeogenesis, which is the formation of new glucose inside the body. Cortisol also increases insulin resistance, which leads to increased glucose level in the blood. Cortisol exerts its anti-inflammatory effects through production of lipocortin, which is an inhibitor of phospholipase A2. This leads to decreased production of interleukin-2 and decreased proliferation of T lymphocytes and suppression of immune response. Cortisol also has a permissive role in the arterioles by upregulating alpha-1 adrenergic receptors. That's why cortisol is needed for vasoconstrictive response of the arterioles to catecholamines. Cortisol also inhibits bone formation by decreasing the synthesis of collagen type 1, which is a major component of bone matrix. It also decreases intestinal calcium absorption. Cortisol exerts its effects on CNS. There are glucocorticoid receptors in the brain, particularly in the limbic system. Cortisol decreases rapid eye movement sleep and leads to increased awake time. Clinical features which are specific for Cushing syndrome include centripetal obesity, facial plethora, supraclavicular fat pads, and dorsocervical fat pads. These features are due to redistribution of fat in the body. The typical appearance of the Cushing syndrome is known as lemon on stick appearance. Then there are wide, more than 1 cm broad violaceous stria which are pathognomonic of Cushing syndrome. There are other features which are more common but less specific for Cushing syndrome. These include easy bruising, excessive skin fragility, proximal muscle weakness, impaired memory, temporal balding, hirsutism in the woman, and menstrual abnormalities. The last three features are present in Cushing syndrome due to pituitary adenoma or due to adrenal carcinoma. Then there are certain medical conditions which are strongly associated with Cushing syndrome but not part of the disease. These include osteoporosis, hypertension, diabetes mellitus, obesity, depression, hypokalemia, nephrolithiasis, and pulmonary embolism. These two photographs show typical moon face of the Cushing syndrome with round face and prominent facial plethora. These two photographs show excessive pigmentation of the skin which can be present in patients of Cushing syndrome. This photograph shows the typical stria of Cushing syndrome. These are wide, more than 1 cm violaceous or purplish stria which are present on the lower abdomen and upper thighs. These are two photographs of a same female before treatment on the left and after treatment on the right. These two photographs are of a male before treatment on the left and after treatment on the right. This photograph shows dorsocervical fat pad which is also known as buffalo's hump. Remember, the typical features of Cushing syndrome may not be present in Cushing syndrome caused by ectopic ACTH production. Many of these tumors secrete a biological inactive ACTH that does not activate adrenal steroid synthesis. These patients may have only weight loss and weakness. Among the etiological causes of Cushing syndrome, the most common cause is iatrogenic or exogenous intake of steroids. Long-term and sustained intake of any synthetic glucocorticoid can lead to Cushing syndrome, but it is more likely to occur with longer acting preparations. Steroids taken in equivalence of 5 mg per day of prednisolone or less are unlikely to cause clinically significant Cushing syndrome, while those in excess of 10 to 20 mg per day commonly do after 3 weeks or more of consecutive use. Among the endogenous causes of Cushing syndrome, there are ACTH dependent causes and ACTH independent causes. ACTH dependent causes include pituitary ACTH excess, which is also known as Cushing disease. It accounts for 60% of the cases. The other one is ectopic ACTH production, which results from bronchogenic carcinomas and other carcinomas like pancreas, kidney, thyroid, and thymus. They account for 10% of the cases. ACTH independent causes include adrenal neoplasms, which are mostly adenomas and rarely carcinomas. They account for 30% of the cases. This table shows the dose equivalence of different types of synthetic glucocorticoids with 5 mg prednisolone. 5 mg prednisolone is equal to 20 mg hydrocortisone, 4 mg methyl prednisolone and 0.75 mg of dexamethasone. Cushing syndrome must be differentiated from other disorders and clinical states that are associated with physiological hypercortisolism, known as pseudo-Cushing syndrome. Causes of pseudo-Cushing syndrome include severe obesity, polycystic ovary syndrome, pregnancy, anorexia nervosa, depression, alcoholism, and extreme physical stress like severe infection. In patients with a clinical diagnosis of Cushing syndrome, the initial screening test is the overnight dexamethasone suppression test. Dexamethasone 1 mg per oral is given at 11 p.m. and plasma cortisol levels are measured 9 hours later, that is at 8 am. Plasma cortisol level less than 5 microgram per 100 ml excludes Cushing syndrome. Other screening tests which can be used to diagnose Cushing syndrome include 24-hour urinary free cortisol level and late night salivary cortisol level. Measuring 24-hour urinary free cortisol circumvents problems related to cortisol pulsatility and binding protein abnormalities. To ensure adequate collection, 24-hour urine creatinine is also measured. A test is considered abnormal when urinary free cortisol exceeds the upper limit of the normal range, which is 45 microgram per 24 hours. Values greater than 3 times normal are diagnostic of Cushing syndrome. Less marked elevations are seen with pseudo-Cushing syndrome and polyuria. A falsely low urinary free cortisol can occur in chronic kidney disease and when Cushing syndrome is subclinical or mild. Late night salivary cortisol test is performed between 11 p.m. and midnight and has been reported as 92% sensitive and 96% specific for the diagnosis of Cushing syndrome. These tests should be performed at least twice to ensure reproducibility. The normal evening nadir is lost in Cushing syndrome. Both emotional and physical stress, for example exercise, can cause a physiological increase of salivary cortisol. False positive results are seen with cigarette smoking and tobacco chewing. Late night salivary cortisol testing should not be performed in patients who have disturbed sleep schedules, for example shift workers. Another useful test is low dose dexamethasone suppression test, which can be used to exclude pseudo-Cushing syndrome if the previous results are equivocal. In this test, 0.5 mg of dexamethasone is given every 6 hourly for 48 hours and serum cortisol is measured at 8 am next morning. In normal individuals and pseudo-Cushing syndrome, cortisol level is suppressed to less than 2 microgram per deciliter. The standard assays measure total serum cortisol level, which is bound to cortisol binding globulin and other proteins. Therefore, low dose dexamethasone suppression test should not be performed when cortisol binding globulin is likely to be abnormal, such as in patients with malnutrition, cirrhosis, nephrotic syndrome, patients taking oral contraceptive pills, and pregnancy. The test is also best avoided in patients taking medications that could accelerate dexamethasone metabolism, such as anti-epileptic drugs, phenytoin, phenobarbital, and carbamazepine, rifampicin, and pioglitazone. After Cushing syndrome has been confirmed biochemically, further testing is required to distinguish ACTH dependent and ACTH independent causes. The first step is to measure plasma ACTH level on 2 separate occasions. With adrenal Cushing syndrome, that is ACTH independent Cushing syndrome, Plasma ACTH level is usually less than 5 picogram per ml, whereas values greater than 20 picogram per ml are typically seen with ACTH dependent causes. Plasma ACTH levels between 5 and 20 are non-diagnostic, but are more likely to be seen with ACTH dependent disorders. To further distinguish between ACTH dependent causes, high dose dexamethasone suppression test is used. In this case, 8 mg dexamethasone is given over 48 hours and plasma cortisol level is measured next morning. Pituitary adenomas remains partially sensitive to high dose steroids, so they will suppress cortisol level, while ectopic ACTH producing tumors, they are not sensitive to steroids and will not suppress cortisol level. So we will come with three groups of patients. Those having ACTH undetectable or decreased and lack of suppression indicate adrenal cause of Cushing syndrome. ACTH normal or increased and lack of suppression indicate ectopic ACTH production. ACTH normal or increased and partial suppression suggests pituitary excess, which is Cushing disease. There are some other biochemical abnormalities which are not diagnostic of Cushing syndrome, but they are frequently present in Cushing syndrome. These include hypokalemia, hypochloremia, metabolic alkalosis, hyperglycemia, and hypercholesterolemia. Here is a proposed algorithm for diagnosis of Cushing syndrome. In clinically suspected Cushing syndrome, exclude use of exogenous glucocorticoids, then perform one of three screening tests. If these tests are normal, Cushing syndrome is unlikely. If these tests are abnormal, then exclude physiological hypercortisolism. If physiological hypercortisolism is suspected, again Cushing syndrome is unlikely. If physiological hypercortisolism is excluded, then perform additional testing. If additional tests turn out to be normal, then repeat initial abnormal test and do additional tests. If additional testing is abnormal, Cushing syndrome is confirmed. If the diagnosis of ACTH dependent Cushing syndrome is confirmed, the next step is radiological imaging of pituitary gland, because the most common site of excessive secretion of ACTH is a pituitary tumor. The best study is a high resolution magnetic resonance imaging MRI of the pituitary gland. If the pituitary MRI findings in a patient with ACTH dependent Cushing syndrome are normal, the next step is bilateral simultaneous inferior petrosal sinus sampling for ACTH level. If ACTH level in the petrosal sinuses are significantly higher than those in the peripheral samples, the pituitary gland is the source of excessive ACTH. If there is no gradient between petrosal sinus and peripheral levels of ACTH, the patient probably has a carcinoid tumor somewhere, most likely in the lung. The accuracy of the test is further increased if ACTH responses to injection of exogenous corticotropin releasing hormone are measured simultaneously. Additional imaging studies may be required to localize neoplasms of the lung, pancreas, kidney, thyroid, or thymus in patients with ectopic ACTH production. In patients with ACTH independent Cushing syndrome, CT scan or MRI of the adrenal glands is required. Treatment: in case of pituitary adenoma, transsphenoidal microadenomectomy is the therapy of choice in adults. Pituitary radiation is reserved for patients not cured by transsphenoidal surgery. In children, pituitary radiation may be considered as initial therapy because 85% of children are cured by radiation therapy. Stereotactic radiotherapy, which include photon knife or gamma knife, is effective and exposes the surrounding neuronal tissue to less radiation than conventional radiotherapy. In cases of failure of surgery and radiation therapy, control of cortisol excess is achieved with drugs which include ketoconazole, metyrapone, aminoglutathione, which block adrenal glucocorticoid production, and mifepristone, which blocks cortisol at its receptors, are centrally acting agents which suppress ACTH secretion. Total bilateral adrenalectomy may be considered for patients not cured by surgery or pituitary radiation. In case of adrenal neoplasms, the treatment of choice is surgical resection of the affected adrenal gland. However, because adrenal adenomas secrete high quantities of glucocorticoids which suppress ACTH production from the pituitary gland, so other adrenal gland will also be suppressed. Therefore, glucocorticoid replacement for approximately 9 to 12 months after surgery is needed to allow time for the contralateral adrenal glands to recover from its prolonged suppression. In case of ectopic ACTH, surgical resection of the ACTH secreting neoplasm is the ideal choice. If the tumor cannot be resected, then control of cortisol excess with drugs like ketoconazole, metyrapone, aminoglutathione, mifepristone are centrally acting agents which suppress ACTH secretion is done. Spironolactone can be used to control the mineralocorticoid effects of cortisol and 11-deoxycorticosteroid. Bilateral adrenalectomy can be considered in patients with indolent unresectable tumors. In case of bilateral micronodular or macronodular adrenal hyperplasia, bilateral total adrenalectomy is advised. Prognosis is favorable in patients with surgically amenable disease. In the end, some key points to remember are: the clinical manifestations of Cushing's syndrome can be subtle or non-specific. Most patients who look like they might have Cushing's syndrome, they don't have Cushing's syndrome actually. Screening biochemical tests for Cushing's syndrome can be misleading, and repeated testing or more extensive confirmatory testing is often necessary. Most patients with Cushing's syndrome have a small pituitary tumor producing adrenocorticotropin hormone. Patients with pituitary tumors causing Cushing's syndrome should undergo pituitary surgery by an experienced neurosurgeon because none of the other treatment options is ideal.